Hi, this is an application for those who want to apply to extend their status in Canada. Specifically, if you're Ukrainian who's in Canada under CUAET program, you can apply before March 31st, 2025 to extend your stay in Canada, provided that you have a valid passport and valid biometrics on your file. This video is intended for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice, but we will walk through how to fill out an application to extend your stay. Now, you have to fill out an application online in IRCC portal. Note there are quite a few IRCC portals, so it's important to find the right one. If you just Google it and then you get to a page that looks like this and it says apply for these applications, including work permits, so you know you're in the right place. The other portals look a little bit different. So when you get to this place, if you already have an account, you will click on sign in and select how you're signing in, either with your bank or with your username and password. If you don't have an account, you would click on sign up and go through the process of creating a username, creating a password, and creating security questions, which I encourage you to keep in a safe place and record them. And if you've had an account before, but you don't remember your login and password and you're not able to restore it, not able to recover it, you can just create a new one, really. But you can only have one account tied to one email. So if you're trying to create a new account with an email you used before, it will probably override the previous one. So I will log into my account right now. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so click continue. Every time you log in, there's a new feature right now where you have to enter a code that you receive in your email that's tied to your account. So you should be getting an email from IRCC that looks like this. And you will copy this code and you will enter it into this one-time passcode in order to move on. And then you will get to a page that looks like this. Okay, and then from here, you will create an application. I just had another application created, so I'm deleting it, and then we will create a new one step by step. The portal is a little slow today. So you would select apply to come to Canada, and then you would select visitor visa, study, and work permit. So this is a sample instructions on how to fill out a work permit application from within Canada for Ukrainians. And so there's a question, what would you like to do in Canada? If you want to get a work permit, you would select work. If you're applying, for example, for your child and want them to have a study permit, you would select study. How long you're planning to stay in Canada, you would select temporarily more than 6 months, select the code that matches in your passport. We're talking about Ukrainian measures, so you'd select Ukrainian. What is your current country of residence? This really should be Canada because this measure is for those who are in Canada under CUAET measures and are applying to extend status. Then there's a question, do you have a family member who's a Canadian citizen or PR and is 18 years or older? So if you have a child that was recently born in Canada and is a Canadian citizen, this would still be a no because they're not 18 years or older. And then you select your date of birth. I'm just putting a random date just for the purposes of showing you how this works. We'll move on. Then there's a question about your status in the US. Most likely you will select no. Then there is a question, what is your current immigration status in Canada? If you have a work permit, your status is worker. If you have a study permit, your status is student. So it doesn't matter what your visa in your passport says, it matters what document you have. And if you have a work permit, your status is worker, even if you're not actively working in Canada right now. It's not about your job, it's about what status you have, what document you have. Okay, so we'll select worker, and then does any of the following apply to you? Yes, you are applying for open work permit under an active public policy. CUAET measures is an active public policy, and basically by this application, you're asking for a new open work permit based on that public policy. So your answer to this question will be yes. And then the other questions are really not really applicable to you. You can read this, but this is sort of for different situations. So you could just select no here. And then move on. So every time you finish a page, you click next. And sometimes the portal is slow, so you have to wait a couple of minutes until you get to the next page. Now, while we wait, I'm stressing that it's important to fill out your application should match, the information should match the previous applications that you filled out with IRCC. So the information in your work permit application should be the same information that you filled out in your previous visa application or previous work permit applications if you filled them out. And if there's any discrepancies, you may want to explain that preemptively or in order for IRCC not to think that you're misrepresenting yourself. Then there is a question about your spouse holding a study permit. Again, it would only be applicable to a small number of people, so most likely you will select no. What is your marital status? You can select as married if that's your case, or single, depending on your situation. And then you can select the province that you're applying, and then at this point you'll get to a place where it's giving you two options. Now we're talking today about an open work permit application, so we're going to select continue here, but this is also a process for those who want to apply for a temporary resident visa from within Canada. So if you have a new passport and you want to fix a visa in your passport and you're physically in Canada, this would also be the process to do. And at this point, you would select a temporary resident visa if you want to get a visa in your passport. And note that for those cases, you need to renew your study permit or work permit first. And then once it's approved, then you may apply for the temporary resident visa. So anyways, we are talking about open work permit today, so we will go there. And then there's a few more questions. Are you accompanying a family member who has status in Canada? So this would be applicable for those situations where a person is not Ukrainian and are applying together with a person who is Ukrainian. And so the CUAET measures extend to Ukrainians and their immediate family members, for example, a husband or a wife. In this case, we would say no, because if you are Ukrainian, if you have a Ukrainian passport, you have a standalone right for application for extension of status. So you could say no here. And then when does your status expire? This is a question about when does your current work permit expires or study permit expires. This is not the question when your passport expires or when your visa expires. It doesn't matter when the visa in your passport expires or if it's already expired. It matters when your current work permit expires. And then depending on what you put here, the portal will give you different options. Now, it's very important to apply for a new work permit before your current work permit expires. Otherwise, you will be out of status in Canada. You will be illegally in Canada. So it's very important to submit the application before your current work permit expires. So we're just saying, for the purposes of this sample, we're saying that my work permit expires in March 2025. And so 2 months from now, and then we're going to go ahead. Now there is a question about, have you had a medical exam done by IRCC within the last 12 months? And if you have, you select yes. If no, then you select no. There's a general rule that medical exams are valid for 12 months. However, there is currently a temporary policy which allows for medical exams to be valid for up to 5 years. Now, it is up to IRCC's discretion, so they may still ask you to do a new medical exam. And if you do receive a request like that, do not ignore it. Do not rely on this policy. You should follow up with IRCC if you want to confirm that they really want you to do it. But in case you receive a request from IRCC for medical exam, do not ignore it. Go ahead and do it. Most likely you won't. Most likely they already have your results on file, and that should be sufficient. And then there is a question, do you want to submit an application for a family member? If so, like you can submit an application for a few family members at the same time. So for example, a husband and a wife and 2 children in Canada, and each of the family members is applying for their own extension. You could do that, and if you select yes, it will start asking you questions about your family member. So we're not going to do that today. I'm just going to go back and modify my answer to say no. So then we just focus on one person in this application, but you could fill out applications together. And then, are you giving someone access to your application? If you're doing it yourself, you'll likely select no here. And then the question about your biometrics. If you applied for a visa to come to Canada recently, you would have done your biometrics, so you would say yes here. Then there are fees associated with this application. Ukrainians are no longer fee exempt, so you will select yes, I will be paying my application fees. And then are you able to make a copy of your documents? You really should say yes to that. And then select yes that you can pay your fees online and you can use your credit card. That's the fastest way to pay. So now the system is giving you an option to review your answers. You can click on this, on any of these pens, and then go back and modify the answers if you want to. This is not submitted yet, so you can go back and edit it as you need to. Now there's instructions about attaching documents. There are instructions about the size for each file and the format. You should review them to see what's needed. And then you should get to a page that looks like this, where it says what documents you need to provide. So we're talking about extension of work permit. So this would show you a form IMM 5710, but if you're filling out information about a study permit, or if you want to get a new visitor record, it would give you a different form. And if you're applying to affix a visa in the passport, if you give you form IMM 5257, a common confusion that I've seen is that the portal is giving you a form IMM 5257 here, but it's a different form. This is an optional document that is mostly asking about your involvement at some organizations and your travel history. Now, in the context of this application, IMM 5257 is not a mandatory form. It's under optional documents, so you can skip it. You don't have to fill it out. And if you do fill it out, this would not be an automatic application for a visa in your passport. If you want to get a visa in your passport, you need to do this from the beginning and then select temporary resident visa when, remember, we were at that point before. Now, this is a sample application for a work permit, so we're going to go ahead. And if you click on this, it will take you to a page where you can download the form. Now, when you are downloading the form, you will not be able to open it from your browser. You will have to save it on your computer and then open it from your computer. And then the form should look like this. Application to change conditions, extend my stay, or remain in Canada as a worker. And the number of the form is here at the bottom. So you can see it, you can double check. So you will fill out the form, you'll put your UCI, which you can find in your work permit and on your visa in your passport. You can find your UCI, unique client identifier. If for whatever reason you have two UCIs to your name, just use the most recent one, use the higher number. And then you would select apply for a work permit for the first time or as a new employer. You would fill out your personal details, where you were born, and so on. This is about your current status in Canada. So this is not asking when your visa is valid. This is a question about what is your status like. Do you have a work permit or a study permit? And you should put the dates from your current work permit. This would be the date of expiry of your current work permit. If you lived in any other country for more than 6 months, you would answer yes and then complete the information about your status in that country. Then you would complete the information about your marital status, when you were married, what's your spouse's name. If you were married before, you would fill that out as well here. And then languages that you speak. Have you taken an English test? This is not about the test you took to sign up for English classes. This is TOEFL or IELTS. This would be designated testing agency test. Then the information about your passport and its expiry. And I know the mandatory fields are marked with an asterisk, so you can't really skip them. Now, there's also not mandatory fields. So, for example, a question about national identity document has an expiry date, but it's not a mandatory field. So you could potentially be in a situation where you don't have an expiry date on your national identity document, and you don't have to fill it out then. Then contact information. you can have different mailing address and residential address. If you want to receive your mail at a different place, then just indicate that, or you can have the same address for both and then just click yes, and include your phone and email address. Then this is a question about your original entry to Canada. Very first time you came to Canada and where. And then what was the original purpose for coming to Canada? If you came to Canada under the CUAET program, you could select other, and then you could put CUAET as a purpose of your original entry. And then you would only fill this out if this is not the same as original entry. So if you left Canada and then came back, you would have a new time where you entered Canada and you would put that here. And then you could also put your work permit document number in here. What type of work permit you're applying for? You're applying for an open work permit for under this public policy. Remember, these fields without an asterisk are non-mandatory, so you can skip them. And then you do have to put the intended location of employment in Canada. If you have an employer right now, you could put their address, or you could just put something like to be determined. It doesn't really matter because this is an open work permit. This is a work permit under the Ukraine policy. These are the instructions how you should put. In job title, you should put Ukraine 2022. In brief description of duties, you should put Ukraine 2022 public policy open work permit. For duration of employment here, you can only put the date that is larger than today's date. So you can either put today or some date in the future. If you put a date in the past, it will give you an error. And then 2, you can put a date that's 3 years away, because that's how long you can get a work permit for. Now, this doesn't mean that you will get the work permits for these dates. This is just tentative. The immigration will issue a work permit at the time when they process your application. So, for example, if you apply in January and your application is processed in April, your work permit will be issued April 1st, 2025, and it will be the maximum you can get right now is 3 years, so till April 1, 2028, for example, right? Depending on when they process your application. Now for education, you put your highest level of post-secondary education and you put in the details. For employment, you need to answer for the past 10 years, starting with the most recent. Now, there's only 3 spots here, so if you run out of space, you can add that information, but you will not be able to add that to the form. You will have to add a separate document, and you can do that here in the client information. You can upload a file, and you can upload a page and add your entire work history, for example, and just explain that this is in addition to the form that you filled out. In the background information, read carefully the questions. Some of them may apply to you. There's a question about tuberculosis. There's a question about physical and mental disorder. If any of these apply to you, you should be able to explain briefly what the situation was. Then there is a question, very important, have you remained beyond the validity of your status or worked or attended school without authorization in Canada? IRCC already knows that, or potentially they will be able to see that. So you need to answer truthfully. Have, have you ever been refused a visa, denied entry, ordered to leave Canada or any other country? Again, it's important to answer truthfully. It's not bad if you have had a situation like that before. It's bad if you don't mention it and then IRCC realizes it and then thinks that you were trying to misrepresent yourself, which could have much worse consequences. And then the question, have you previously applied to enter or remain in Canada? You will most likely have yes to this because you are already in Canada and you most likely applied for CUAET or some other visa to get here. So you would have to answer yes and provide details of what kind of visa that was and when it was received. Now there's some questions about criminal offenses and criminal involvement in any groups. You may want to answer no, but there's also a question about did you serve in any military, in any organization or police force? And if you did, you should answer yes, and you should provide the details. So don't skip this question, read carefully what is asking you to. And then the last piece is your signature. You can answer yes if you want to be contacted by RCC for professional evaluation purposes. This does not affect anything in your application. And then your signature, you should just type your first name and your last name as it appears in your passport. If you're filling out an application for your child, you would enter all the information in here would be relevant to your child, not your information. If this is, for example, a study permit application, but then a person under 18 years cannot sign the application themselves. So, for example, if you're a parent, you would be signing as their mother, for example, and you would put that in. We're going to log out, and you put the date when you're signing this form. After you're done with the form, you click validate. You will get a message like this, and then you will get barcodes, which already include the information that you included in the form. If you notice something you want to change, so if you correct your UCI or something else, you should click validate again before saving the form and before uploading it. If you've done everything correctly, you should be able to upload the file by choosing a file and then selecting a file from your computer. So you should be able to do that. I'm just going to do that separately here, and I will upload the form like this. You'll have the message, hopefully success. If something's wrong, the portal will tell you. You cannot print this form, sign it, and scan it. You will get an error. You cannot add any pages to this form. You will get an error. You can only save it as a PDF file and upload it with the barcodes. And that's the only way to do it. And if you notice a mistake, you can always upload a new form. You can just click on update information and then choose a new file, and it will automatically override the file that you've already uploaded. And then the same thing was your documents. So your passport, all the pages that include stamps, visas, any markings, any information, you should upload your passport copy, then digital photo. There's instructions of what the photo should be. You can also look at the temporary resident visa application photo specifications to do that. Like look at the photo requirements. What should be the white background, no additional things in the photo. It's neutral expression. You could do the photo yourself at home, but I really caution you to do it because the lighting can be bad, the background may not be white, and then that would jeopardize your application. So, but if you want to, you could potentially do it. There's no requirement that this should be done at the photo studio, so it's really up to you. And then so you would upload the photo and upload all the documents with your application. I just did that. It would show I just uploaded a random file, but you would see the file name that you uploaded, and again you can come back and change that. And then remember, we talked about Schedule 1, MM5257. That's not mandatory for this application. And then client information, this is a field where you can upload anything that you want to add to your application, maybe some explanation, maybe some additional documents, maybe some additional information about your work history, what have you. And then after you upload all the mandatory documents, or if you don't want to upload anything in here in the optional document, that's fine too. After you upload all the mandatory documents, you'll get this button next. If you're not getting the next button, that means that you are missing something here. So it's also showing you the fees. So the fee for the work permit and open work permit, it's $255. You have to pay both. So in order to be able to have an open work permit, there's like this double fee that you pay, $255. If you're filling out an application for a visitor record for a child or a study permit for a child, the fees will be different. So visitor record is $100, study permit is $150. And then work permit your child can get once they turn 14. So you can apply for a work permit for a child. And then once you fill it all out, you will click next. You will see the documents you uploaded, and then you will see this privacy notice. Read it. It's a declaration that you've provided truthful information, and any false statements may result in inadmissibility. Like we talked about, you would select agree, and then you would put your first name and last name as a signature, and then you would put an answer to a security question. the ones that you have when you created the account, and then after you click sign, it will submit your application. That will take you to the page where you have to pay CIC fees. It will have a field to enter your credit card that will pay your fee, and that's when the application will be submitted. So after you submit application, you will not be able to change anything anymore. You will then have to check your account regularly for any updates. You will get an email from IRCC that there is an update in your account waiting for you, and you will have to log in your account, and you will see, I'll show you on the home page. Well, you see it kicked me out right now, but you will see in your application, you will be able to see any updates, any information from IRCC that it's needed to process your file. If you still have any questions about this process or any other process for immigration, for staying in Canada, for Ukrainians, we have a dedicated hotline with Pro Bono Ontario where you can call Monday to Friday every day from 12 to 5 Eastern, and you can speak to me. My name is Ola Senyshyn. I'm a lawyer with Pro Bono Ontario. So thank you for watching. All the best with your applications, and good luck in Canada.